Setting up to the golf ball correctly is incredibly important if you want to be hitting consistently good golf shots. And while we don't hit the ball with our setup, what we do is we create conditions in which we can consistently deliver the club in the same place every time. If we're setting up inconsistently with poor alignment or poor posture, we're going to have to make compensations for that during the golf swing. And any time we're making compensations, our strike and our direction is never going to be as consistent as it otherwise might be if we don't have to. So in this video, I'm going to break the setup down into 3 different parts, which are grip, alignment and posture. And make sure you stick around to the end of the video, because at the end, I'm going to give you my exact procedure in how I get set up correctly on the golf course every single time. So the first and most important fundamental is good grip. And grip has so much influence, not just on where the club face is pointing, but also in our ability to move the club freely through the golf swing. If my hands are on the club incorrectly, not only will it affect how the face is pointing, but it's also going to affect how I can hinge the club in my backswing and how I can release the club in my downswing. So we need to make sure our grip is right, and there's a couple of fundamentals I think are really important with this, and a couple of checkpoints that you can follow along with at home. So as I'm putting my hands on the club, what's really important is we're keeping the club face nice and square. If I put a perfect golf grip on here, but my club face looks like this, where it's wide open, I'm going to have to twist that round. So now by the time I come to hit the shot, you can see how my grip is twisted, and this is now in an incorrect position. So making sure as we're putting our hands on the club, we're doing it really softly, really nice and light, and we're making sure that club face is staying really, really nice and square. So the fundamentals I think are important to get right here are making sure that the hand sits through the fingers of the club. So as I put my left hand on the club, what I'm trying to do is sit the bottom of the golf club through the bottom of my fingertips here. From that position, what I do is the pad that is on the back of my left hand here will sit on top. So I should be able to hold the golf club with just those 2 parts of my hand on the grip. And from there, really simply, all I'm trying to do is just put my thumb ever so slightly on the offside of the grip like this. And again, from here, I've got a nice light grip pressure, but because it's sitting in my fingers, the club isn't going to go anywhere out my hands there. A couple of checkpoints you can look for to make sure your left hand grip is right. As you're looking from that side there, so you can use a mirror for this, the line between my thumb and index finger as I put the club down should be pointing up towards my right shoulder. And if I haven't set this up correctly, if I put it too much on the underside of the grip like that, you can see this line now isn't pointing to my right shoulder, but as I twist it round, it naturally sits a little bit more in my fingers, and I should have this line pointing somewhere up in the region of my right shoulder there. Another checkpoint, if you haven't got a mirror in front of you, is to just look straight down, and you should be able to see at least 2 knuckles in the back of your left hand. So both of those are really good checkpoints for making sure the position of the hand is correct. And again, I'll go back to it, but a really, really nice light grip pressure. You never want to feel like you're holding onto the club. If we put too much tension on our grip, it puts tension in the forearms and it will create inconsistencies in the swing. As I put my right hand on, the main thing I'm trying to do here is, again, sit it through the fingers. But as you look there, I'm trying to make sure my right hand sits on top of my left thumb. So again, if you've got a mirror in front of you, as you put the right hand grip on, you shouldn't be able to see your left thumb, and again the thumb sits ever so slightly on the offside of the grip. There's obviously different grips we can employ. I personally use an overlapping grip because it helps the grip a little bit softer, but again there's interlocking, and if you're just starting out, there's also the baseball grip. But really important, if you are going to choose the baseball grip, again the pressure is light and there's no space between the hands like this. Now we've got a perfect grip on around a really nice square club face, we need to talk about alignment. So there's 3 things we need to get aligned, and that is feet, shoulders and club face. And the most important one of these is always going to be club face. So the way I check that, and the way you can check this on the range as well, is with an alignment stick and an empty glove packet or something that's resembling this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my alignment stick on my target line. So I'm going to make sure this is pointing straight at the target that I've picked on the range. And I'm going to put this so it's lying flat against the alignment stick there. And what I'm going to do is put my club face down. And now what I need to see is, with this straight line, which is at a right angle to the alignment stick on the ground, my leading edge, so the bottom edge of the club here, matches this line perfectly. Typically when people do this, and I see this often, I actually struggle a little bit with this myself, have a slightly too open club face. The club face only has to be a couple of degrees open, and either if I deliver the club perfectly, I'm going to expect a bit of a slice off to the right, or more commonly I'm going to have to try and save that through the swing, and generally that is done by a really active release of the hands. This is one of the compensations I talked about earlier, and it's never going to lead to consistently straight and well hit golf shots. Leading edge there is square to the glove packet, and what I'm going to do here is just get set up with a good grip and get used to what that looks like down at the ball. So when I go for my practice swings and my shots in a minute, I'm going to try and see exactly the same thing. And for me, even though I've tested that and I know that leading edge is now square to my ball to target line, it still looks a little bit close. So it takes a bit of repetition to try and get this right. Other than club face alignment, we've got to make sure our feet are aimed correctly, and that's really, really simple. Using an alignment stick or a spare club, we can just lay that on the ground to our target and make sure that both feet are the same distance away from the stick. And shoulder alignment should follow your foot alignment. So your shoulders should align themselves along your feet like this. And the way I test this is I set up first with good club face alignment. I then make sure both my feet are the same distance from the stick. And to check my shoulder alignment, because this is a little bit harder to see in yourself, is what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my hands off the club and I'm just going to let my hands naturally hang. Then I'm going to take the club, and from that position where my arms are naturally hanging, that should show the alignment of my shoulders. So if my shoulders were pointing too much to the left, again, you can see how the stick is now pointing a little bit left, and again, opposite. If I've got my left shoulder too far forwards, it's going to show the club pointing a bit to the right. So letting your arms naturally hang, and that should be along the line of your toes there. When practicing alignment on the range, I think it's important to mix up your target. So obviously, typically on a range, we're going to be hitting from a range mat, and it basically acts as an alignment aid. So it's doing all of our aiming for us. On the golf course, we don't get that alignment aid, so we need to get used to lining up without the use of the straight lines on the range mat. So picking different targets that are off center from the mat is a really good way of getting used to this. So with my alignment stick, I'm going to hit a few shots at one target, and then I might pick a different target, shift my alignment stick round, make sure that's lined up correctly. I've got my glove packet there as well. And again, get used to aiming at targets that are left or right of the range. And you'll probably find that you're more comfortable aiming at targets that are one side rather than the other. So typically I draw the ball a little bit. So for whatever reason, I'm a little bit more comfortable closing my stance at aiming at targets that are right down the range. So I'll spend a little bit more time opening my stance, aiming left down the range mat and aiming at targets that are down the left, because personally I find that a little bit more difficult. So now we've got a good grip and good alignment, we're well on our way to a really good setup. But one more thing that is really important is posture. And what I oftentimes see with people with their posture is they tend to bend too much for the knees to get low to the ground and then round too much from their back. And as they're doing that, they're sort of tucking their hips under like this. But you can see from a posture like this, it's going to be really hard to maintain my height through the swing. And generally when people set up like this, they tend to lift a little bit too much in the backswing and then have to dip down and hit the shot. And when you're moving the club at speed, anytime you're level changing like this, consistent contact to the ground is going to be quite hard to come by. What I like to see instead is obviously a really, really strong athletic posture. And the way we do this is we put our hands on the club with good grip, good club face alignment, and then we're going to set our feet first. And from there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tilt from my hips, so not tucking my hips under, but tilting from my hips, getting my chest lower to the ground, keeping my back nice and flat as if I was in good standing posture. And then as I feel a little bit of a pinch in my hamstrings there, it's a tiny bit of bend to relieve that. But I'm not bending from my knees to get lower to the ground. I'm bending from my knees to relieve that pressure in my hamstring that's created from tilting my hips and keeping my back nice and flat. In the same way that you hopefully stand with good posture, shoulders back, really, really nice and strong. We're going to try and reflect that in the golf swing. So from this side, again, tilting from the hips, keeping the back nice and flat. And as soon as I feel that pinch in my hamstrings, I've gone to the end of my range of motion, and it's a tiny bit of bend to relieve that. And from here, it's going to be much, much easier for me to maintain my posture as I move the club back and through with a bit of speed than it is from this position. This is hard to get any sort of range of motion, so to get the club going back further, we're going to see people start to do this too much. So at the start of the video, I said I was going to give you the process that I follow, and it is exactly this. What I think is really important as we get used to aligning in this way and we're getting more comfortable with really, really good alignment and posture, is we set the club up before we set ourselves up. And what I mean by that is if I put a ball down here, to make sure I'm consistent distance away from the ball and to make sure that I create enough space to move the club through, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the club up first, again with keeping a good eye on that leading edge, making sure the alignment is good. Then I'll take my grip, and then I'm going to take my posture around the club on the ground. This is as opposed to setting myself up and then putting the club behind the ball, because from here it's going to be hard to get the same consistency in terms of distance from the ball. So I think it's important first and foremost to set the club, make sure that's in the perfect position, and then go through all the checkpoints we talked about there, but around the club that's on the ground. And from here we can guarantee that we're in a very similar distance away from the club each time. And again, consistency in setup is always going to lead to consistency in your shot. So going to set the club up, leading edge nice and square. I'm going to take a good grip, foot, shoulder alignment, really strong posture, and then I'm ready to hit. So if you're struggling with consistency, first and foremost, make sure you get your setup right, and then you can work on more technical things in the golf swing.